Alright, we're going to talk about how to make a graph from your data in the exciting world of Google Sheets. So, first thing you see is I've already laid out my data, and I've done it in a very specific way. Because in Google Sheets, it will assume that this A column is what it's going to place on your x-axis. And this B column is what's going to set up on your y-axis. Now you can change that later on, but if you want the computer to do the instantaneous heavy lifting for you, set up like this. So first thing I do is fill up my data table, and then I highlight that data table, including the titles, and I go to Insert Chart. Now I could have just clicked on this Chart button over here. It says Insert Chart, but this is the guaranteed way to always get it to go. So boom, got a chart. Now this is going to usually create a series of bar graphs, and that is not what we want in physics. In physics, we want to see a nice scatter plot or a line graph. So I'm going to make some adjustments there. No big deal. So first thing over here on the chart editor, which will automatically pop up, and if it doesn't, you can click on these three dots here to get it to pop up. Under data, I'm going to go to chart type. It says column chart. Just click on that. Scroll down a bit. There's my friend scatter chart. And huzzah, I am done. Alright, see, not too bad. Now some other things you might want to know about this data side here is it'll tell you your data range, x-axis, so you can actually change what's on the x-axis, and then series is basically what's talking about when it sees the y-axis. Alright, so you can click on that right here with these three dots. That's basically your edit button, and you can change what's on your y-axis, or you can click on this and change what's on your x-axis. Now we're about 3/4 of the way there, but we want to get it to be nice and clean exactly the way we want it. So the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to click on Customize, and I am going to always want to slap a line on this. So to do that, you go to Series, and click on Series, and then here Tread Line, and that will automatically bring up a line. Because in physics, we're always trying to get our graphs to be linear, even if it takes a little bit of effort. Now, besides that, we also want to get in the habit of producing the equation, because not only do we want to have a line, we want to have a mathematical equation that describes that line. So where it says label, right now it says none. Well, I want to say use equation. So you can see over here in the top right-hand corner, it now produces the equation that describes this line that it drew. Another thing you probably want to have is this show r² value. That basically tells you how good your line really fits your data. The closer to 1, the more your line is likely to represent your data. Now, 0.963 is pretty good, alright, but it's not perfect. So we may need to do some tweaking. But before we get there, let's fill out the rest of our graph. Next thing you want to do is you want to have your axes clearly labeled. So I'm going to go back here to my Customize, scroll, let's go minimize this, Chart and Axis Titles. So if I click on that, right here it says Vertical Axis Title, so I can click on this here, and if it didn't say Vertical Axis, just click on it and choose what you want. But we're going to start with the Vertical Axis. And so like I said, these numbers over here represent our y-axis. So our y-axis is time. And you always want to include units, so time in seconds. And then let's go to our horizontal axis, or our x-axis, and we have mass in kilograms. Done and done. And then let's label our title. I like to do y versus x. So we have time versus mass. You can add extra words or things like that to make it more specific. I'm just doing kind of a generic one here. Alright, so now we're all set up. So this is basically done. The last thing you have to do is make that final decision. Is this actually a line? So when I visually look at this, I say, well, it's below, below, above, above, below. So it seems like it actually has this curved nature to it. And I always kind of double check myself. I say, well, it started below, it lived above, and then it went back below at the very end. Now, if even this data point right here, like this one or this one, was below again, then I would be more inclined to say, hey, I think these are kind of randomized. You got that zigzag pattern across the line. So then this line, is actually true. But since we go below, above, and then back from where we started, I definitely think this is a curve. Now, it's actually pretty easy to check. So all I'm going to do is I'm going to manipulate my y-axis to make this a curve. Now, the reason why I'm manipulating my y-axis is because if I do think it's a curve, it looks like my time here is dying off. Okay, it's kind of reaching a plateau. You got an asymptote going on here that is related to time. Time's just like, oh, I give up. So I'm going to help time out by squaring it. So I'm going to go and make the computer do all this work because, that's what they're for. So if I click on here, I'm going to make a new column, call it time, and I'm going to square it. So time squared. And then I got to make sure the units match, so seconds squared. And then I'm going to have the computer do the math for me. So I'm going to make an equation. So I start with the equal sign, and then I click on what I want to do. So I'm going to have it square all these. So caret 2, that's the squared function. Hit enter, and it will automatically square it for me. Then, so I don't have to do it for all of it, if I grab this little blue square down here and just drag it down, it will then repeat that function over and over and over again and automatically do it for me. So now to check to see if this works, I can go back to my graph, just click on my graph, and I want to manipulate my data. So I'm going to go to my 3 dots, click on that, edit chart, and I want to mess with the y-axis. And like I said, the computer calls the y-axis series. So I'm going to go to the 3 dots next to that, click on it, go to edit. It's going to ask me what data do I really want to see on my y-axis. Just highlight that, and then go back and highlight this. So it's going to relate to the column that I want. Hit OK, and we'll automatically update the equation. It'll automatically update the r² value. It'll do this stuff. It will not update the labels. So we'll have to go back in and change the labels. But you can see now that the r² value is 1, which basically means it's a fake data set because, well, I made it up. But you can also now see that all these dots are directly on the line. It is very linear, and this would be a much better representation of the phenomena that we are viewing. So now to change the axes is very simple. I said, well, I want to change this vertical axis, so I just have to click on it, and it will automatically send me to the right part of the chart editor to do that. So where I had time, I'm just going to replace that with time squared. So time squared, update the units to now be seconds squared, and I am done. So I now have a graph. Oh, I want to change my title too. Don't forget your title. Don't forget to change the title. So again, time squared versus mass. All right, so now I have a graph that appropriately represents what I was viewing. All right, so hopefully that was helpful. Hopefully that worked out. And if you have any questions, please let me know.